You're tuned in to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Welcome back to the show, guys. I am super excited to bring you an amazing restaurateur from Los Angeles. His name is Mr. Joshua Kopel. Actually, he's not from Los Angeles at all. He's from Baton Rouge. And Joshua's original idea was to go to LA 20 years ago to find a unique concept that he could bring back to the South. What ended up happening? He stayed in LA and brought Creole Cuisine to that fine restaurant city. He now runs 3 concepts, including the Michelin-rated Preux Proper. What's in a name? I've always believed in the name of your restaurant is such powerful marketing. Well, Preux, P-R-E-U-X, is a French word that means brave, gallant, valiant, and courageous. And proper, of course, means conforming to established standards. So what a unique name. So anyway, Joshua and I got together and we started talking restaurants. And there are so many key learnings in this episode. He'll tell all about how he almost lost Preux Proper before he then built it back up and then ultimately earned his Michelin-Star rating. We're going to talk about costs. We're going to talk about menu design and development. We're going to talk about running a tight ship, how to motivate and train staff. We're going to cover all the bases. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant RockStars Podcast, and these are engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. I am so stoked today. My guest is Mr. Joshua Kopel, and he's running 3 concepts in Los Angeles, recognized concepts, but what a story he has, an amazing story all about true success in the restaurant and hospitality space. Welcome to the show, Joshua, and thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
This is so much fun for me because I love talking shop with independent operators. We actually have something called the Independent Operator Series in the podcast, and you're an excellent addition to that. So here we go. My audience knows that we usually start out with the backstory of my guest, and yours is particularly fascinating. Now, I know that you're a Baton Rouge, Louisiana boy, born and raised, and you went to Los Angeles to find an idea for a Southern concept that you would bring back, or no, an idea that you would bring back to the South.
Oh, a fancy Los Angeles concept.
Oh, dazzling.
I wanted to bring back something super cool from Los Angeles, like a shoe store that turns into a nightclub, you know?
I still hear the accent in your voice, even though you spent 2 decades in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is you stayed in LA, and now you're bringing Southern cuisine, right? Creole cuisine to LA, and you're just making a huge story out of that, and that's really amazing. Now your flagship restaurant is called Preux Proper, and it's Michelin recognized, which is amazing. But I want to hear all about the backstory. Tell us way back when how you got interested in restaurants or cooking, or where did the passion come from?
Well, I'm from Southern Louisiana, and so the hospitality industry is central to the economy there, and and so there aren't a lot of places that you can work illegally when you're like 13, 14, 15 years old, but you can in a restaurant. So I started by working in dirty bars, sweeping floors, cleaning toilets, and all of that. And I just worked off tips, and then slowly but surely worked my way up through the ranks to where I am today. But it started on the outskirts of Baton Rouge in Prairieville, Louisiana, at the Alligator Bayou Bar, which is located on Alligator Bayou Road, which is located on Alligator Bayou.
So that vision of the Alligator Bayou I'm getting in my mind is like just that, right? There's a bayou down a country road, and if you fall in the water, you could get eaten by an alligator, right?
So this is how we used to tell people how to get there before the internet. We used to say, you're going to take a right off the freeway. When the pavement becomes gravel, keep going. When the gravel becomes dirt, look to your left, and you'll see it. And you would see this. It was a cabin.
Yeah.
It was a cabin that I think it was like 50 years old, 60 years old at the time, that had been refashioned into a bar. There was a group of folks dancing in there one night, and the floor caved in the middle. And the owners went to me and they said, you need to get that fixed. So I came back to them with the price. They said, how much is it? And I said, it'll be about $2,500 to $3,000 to fix it. And they said, well, how much is a pool table? And I said, pool table's $1,500. And they were like, duct tape over the hole and put a pool table there.
Smart idea. Right? New profit center. Don't fix the hole. Figure out a way to make money over the hole.
Brilliant, man. It was a pleasure to learn from them.
I love it. That's fantastic. So I got, I get all these impressions like moon shining and all that stills in the backwoods and all that kind of stuff. Was that really the ambiance of this place?
Yeah, I mean, less moonshine, more Jack Daniels, but I mean, it was everything you would think it was. It was live music every night. Baton Rouge has blue laws, so this place was particularly popular on Sundays because it was the first place you could drink on your way from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. So everybody would come out on Sunday nights. We had a big patio in the back that overlooked the bayou. It was very how you would envision. It was very stereotypical, but it was as magical as you could imagine.
That's awesome. That is so great. How far is it from Baton Rouge to New Orleans?
About 45 minutes.
Okay, that's not too far. I was there, I think about a year ago. I was doing a speaking gig down in New Orleans. I had never been there before, but it was like Mardi Gras any day of the week. I think I was there like on a Monday or Tuesday night, and the place, the French Quarter was still like crazy with people like spilling out of places and everyone like having that party thing. And there were so many restaurants to choose from. It's like, how do you possibly? So yeah, it's
for
all
sure.
about hospitality and lifestyle and all that sort of thing. And those are your roots, right?
Well, they are. And that was also my breeding ground. I mean, that's where I learned about next level hospitality. That's when I realized that, you're not serving food, you're serving the patron, and every experience is an individualized experience. And that's also where I learned that, for me personally, I have a servant's heart and I love to serve people and I love to participate in their experiences. You can look at it as, this is a gig where you get paid a small hourly, plus you get, cash in your pocket every night. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to really participate in people's special moments, their first dates, their anniversaries, their promotions. There are so many magical moments that happen in people's lives that they choose to share around a dinner table. And you are, if you do your job right, a meaningful member of that without overly influencing the experience.
I get the sense that you're still very much a part of the front of house in your establishments and your.
I actively operate all of my locations.
You do. So how do you? I mean, do you spend certain days at certain locations? Do you mix it up? They never know when you're going to show up. How does that work?
So it's a process. So I start out in the morning. I go to the bar. So if you could see the way LA is set up geographically, I live in the valley. So I pass through Hollywood on my way to downtown. So I pass through Hollywood, I stop by the bar, I see how they closed the night before, and then I roll into the fine dining restaurant, do a little paperwork before the fried chicken joint down the street opens, go to the fried chicken joint for opening, make sure everything is smooth, then I head back to the fine dining restaurant, do the administrative work, whatever I have to do for the rest of the day, and then we open for dinner service. By the time the restaurant's winding down around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I go back to the bar and I check in one more time before I go home.
So you got long days, huh?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, isn't that the nature of the beast?
It is, for sure. Well,
I can remember somebody was telling me the other day, they were like, man, I'm just exhausted. Normally I do about 40 hours a week, but I've been doing 50 hours a week the last 2 weeks and I'm exhausted. I told him, I said, man, I remember my first part-time job. That was rough.
Well, this begs the question. I mean, do you have an exit strategy in mind? Whatever that means to you?
I mean, we're building this thing out to be, a family of brands that then when you look at the bar concept is easily replicatable and would be a beautiful addition to like any airport in the country. We have a deal that's still under wraps, but it is an opportunity to get South City and every major city with very little friction. So everything is part of a larger plan.
That's fantastic.
But I also like it. I like to work.
Well, you got to love it. But what about your management teams? I mean, describe your management style and tell me how much delegation you have, and if you empower your staff, and what your feeling is on all of that, and how you
a ton of delegation,
right?
A ton. Mm-hmm. All I do every day is what only I can do. That's it. If someone else could possibly do the task that I'm doing, I delegate it out. The management structure at South City, because it's a smaller fast casual location, we have a series of key holders with a variety of responsibilities. At the bar, we do have a general manager there. But again, with a bar, I don't do the babysitting. What I do is the orchestrating, right? It's important to be the visionary and propel these things forward. Every day I ask myself, how can we make it better? How can we inspire people to come back? What can we do that is fun and exciting? Every penny that we invest in the place, we invest in patron experience. And with Preux Proper, it's about keeping it fresh. The Michelin nod was fantastic. As exciting as it was humbling. When it happened, I turned to the executive chef, who's my business partner, and I said, this happens to other people. This doesn't happen to us.
Well, I got to ask you, how does that happen? How do you get recognized? Well, you're in a high profile city, first of all. So I'm sure they have like talent scouts on the lookout for the hot new place, and the recognition that you receive, accolades, that sort of thing. Online reviews probably play into it, but there's probably so much more. Like, how do you get Michelin recognition and Michelin Guide?
I have no idea. Here's what I can tell you. Yeah. I can tell you that they hit me up via email about 3 months before it released. And they said, you're being considered for inclusion in the 2019 California Michelin Guide. We need all of this information. So I reached out to my publicist. My publicist put the packet together. It was a ton of stuff. And then we sent it off. And they sent us an email back saying, received. And then we didn't hear anything. And, it's so funny the way the mind works, because, the Michelin wasn't in California, or wasn't in Los Angeles for years and years. So we didn't open the restaurant thinking, ooh, we hope we get this. It wasn't even a possibility. So when they reached out, I was like, if we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't. Who cares? And then like a month passes, and I was like, well, it would be nice if we got it. That would be really nice. And by the time 2 more months had passed, I was like, if we don't get this, I'm going to kill myself. We have to get this. But, we did from the moment, and we knew that they were going to continue to come back in. They come in multiple times. And even after they've notified you that you're being considered. And I turned to the staff, and I said, because, everyone like cried and was excited and flipped out. And I said, we don't do anything different. We just keep doing what we're doing. We don't change anything. We're just going to be us. And if they choose us, they're right. And if they don't, they're wrong. But I can't imagine there's anyone on the planet working harder than we are to make people happy.
That's beautiful. That's like I call it playing your best game.
For sure.
Because
that's it.
Yeah, it's a competitive business, right? But it's all driven by passion. It's all about innovation. It's about staying ahead of the competition, having lots of hooks, and dazzling the public with the service and the ambiance and the food and all that kind of stuff, and a million other details besides. But that's playing your best game.
It is. I mean, you look at the margin of error in this industry, and not to say that there aren't other industries with similar margin of errors, but if you do a great job 999 times, and on the 1,000th time you mess it up and you don't take the time to fix it, that person will never care that you did it right 999 times.
That's so true.
Nobody has a bad experience at the restaurant and goes, I'm sure they were having an off night, I'll definitely go back. It never happened. So you have to give it your best. It comes down to your why. It really does. Instead of establishing a list of protocols with the staff, every day during pre-shift, we talk about like why we're there, like why I spent $2 million of my best friend's money building out this restaurant, and why we dedicate 40, 50, 60 hours a week to executing at this level. Why the kitchen guys get in there at 9 o'clock in the morning for a 4 p.m. service, because if everybody involved in the process understands why we do it, and why we do it comes from like a really significant, meaningful place, then there doesn't need to be direct management. If someone doesn't like a dish and it was prepared the right way, they shouldn't be obligated to pay for it, in my opinion. Because I don't want to pay for shit I'm not going to eat. I don't want to pay for food I don't like. And it's not my fault I don't like it. I just don't like it,
Agreed.
And so on the rare occasions that happens, they're empowered to say, I'm sorry you don't like it. Not, I'm sorry the food is bad. Because, I have this strategic advantage working with a world-class chef. And the food is always great. And the food is always consistent. And so, we walk through every day with the confidence of knowing that it's a near impossibility that the food wasn't executed to perfection. So if you don't like it, it's because you don't like it, and that's fine.
Let me ask you, is your executive chef really strong at costing as well as putting out amazing culinary delights?
Oh, yeah. He's great. He really is. The first time we met, we just talked about food and feeling for hours. And, there's so much to be said for an artist that has a firm business sense, and he has that.
Beautiful.
His labor's in the right place. His food costs are in the right place. It's great.
That's fantastic, and that can be a challenge because I know you've taken a stand for sustainable, sourcing and getting things from sustainable companies, and that is not always the most cost effective. The economies of scale with some of the smaller producers or suppliers just isn't there, and you got to strike that balance. So somehow you're making that work too. It's
a miracle, and he gets all the credit for it because I got to tell you, the food costs a fortune. Like the raw cost of the food costs an absolute fortune because it's a scratch kitchen and we're zero waste, working towards carbon neutral. Mm-hmm. I don't know how he does it, but he does a world-class job. It also helps that the top line is huge. Absolutely, and needs to be. But there's a marketing component to that as well, because the accolades that you receive and the online reviews and the buzz of the customer that loves and can taste the quality, because it is a foodie city. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't put a price on the word on the street that talks about going to that place called Preux Proper. Yeah. So we when we started, when I initially launched the restaurant, I had a different executive chef and a different general manager, and I almost shut it down about 10 months in. The executive chef and I didn't get along. We didn't have the same vision for the restaurant. The general manager was not operating it the way he was operating it in the way a traditional restaurant operates, which is not what I want. I didn't open a restaurant so I could be like everyone else. I wanted it to be a fun place to work that was inspiring, and that the patrons that went were inspired by the feelings that they had there. And it just wasn't that. So right at about the 11-month mark, I brought in Chef Sammy Mansour, and I let go of the general manager, and I took over as general manager myself. And we did all of the heavy lifting ourselves. How long did that process take? We turned it over in 4 days. We shut it down, and 4 days later we opened with basically a new restaurant and a new menu. How did you get the word out that there were changes? Did you just leave it to the public? Did you announce anything? So it's interesting you ask, because I would say that I did a very poor job of getting the word out. I would say that we spent the next year, because I got a ton of business right off the bat. It's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful restaurant. American food in America is a compelling offering because there just aren't that many people doing it, right? So we got a ton of traffic, and we ruined everybody's night. The food was misfired. There was no consistency. It was overcooked. It was undercooked. The bar program was mediocre at best. The staff was largely disorganized. So we spent a lot of time over that first year and into the second year apologizing and begging people to come back. I should have gotten a publicist. That would have made a lot of sense. We should have had a central focus on social media. We didn't. The area we're located in downtown LA is it's a densely populated residential area. We did the best we could to reach out to people, but it was slow, and the reputation is that the food was spotty and it wasn't that good, and nobody knew that there was another executive chef in there, and that largely we had pivoted from being, let's say, an elevated bar concept into fine dining, or whatever fine dining looks like in 2019. And it was a real struggle. It wasn't really to the beginning of year 3 when I decided that either we were going to shut it down or we were going to get incredibly busy. Because I didn't want to be an accountant, right? And that's what all unsuccessful restaurateurs become. You're your own accountant because everybody's calling you on the phone, hounding you for money. This person stopped delivering, and you're at 45 days on this net 30, you're at 60 days on this net 30. I just didn't want to do it. I was tired of being chased down for money. And it was right at the beginning of year 3 that everything changed. And everything changed because I changed, and my focuses changed, and my strategies changed.
That sounds like a triage situation. You mentioned numerous major league problems that you had before the turnaround happened. Like, where did you place your priorities, and what did you focus on first, and how did you tackle it? Just you and the new guy. Like, you had your work cut out for you.
So he was building this menu out, right? So yeah. we launched with like an 8-item menu, and then he eventually grew it to a 30-item menu with another like 18 items on the barroom menu over the course of that year, with very little overlap, but a bunch of crossover in terms of ingredients. But he had built out this amazing menu. We brought in Cassidy Wiggins. She's a world-class beverage director who came up with this like sustainable bar program where you've got like these like really like strong drinks paired with like fruity fun drinks that have like frozen watermelon as like ice cubes. And so everything's great, but nobody's in there, right? So I didn't triage. I only focused on one thing. I focused on top line revenue. I said, what can I do to bring in people? Because the reality is, if you're running a restaurant responsibly, which we were, food cost wasn't an issue. Beverage cost wasn't an issue. My fixed costs were fine. It was labor. Labor's the devil, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when you have a tip job. I mean, and granted, I'm a bit older and I've been gone for 20 years, but I think we were making $2.15 an hour. In Los Angeles, today we're paying $14.25 an hour.
To tip personnel. Unbelievable.
So if that's the case, then
yeah.
What's the devil? The empty seat is the devil, right?
Yeah.
It's about monetizing the people that are on the floor. And so I only focused on top line sales. I still only focus on top line sales. And, I came up with this mantra that I told myself every day. I was like, you're not making enough money because you're not making enough money. That's it. There's a certain number at top line, as long as we continue to operate the restaurant responsibly, there's a top line number we can hit where everything makes sense.
That totally strikes a chord with me and really hits a touchstone, because my philosophy has always been, okay, you as the owner, you're taking all the risks of business. You're doing the mortgage, the rent, the payroll, the utilities, the cost of goods, all this stuff. You got a huge risk in a high fail business, and there's so many operators that I work with or I speak with that just don't seem to, get that simple philosophy that why then wouldn't you expect that every person interacting with a guest not only delivers amazing service, but also is trained to sell, because it's a sales business, it's a sales position. They should be there to maximize your opportunities and maximize your top line revenue. And so many restaurateurs, that concept is lost on them, and they just bring in order takers on the floor and let whatever happens and leave lots of dollars on the table every day. And you just hit the nail on the head. It's like, wow, you're paying $14 an hour to tip personnel. That's huge. Not to mention the rents in the city and all the other, overhead expenses you've got. And somehow
Absolutely.
you got to
My
make
rent
the
is
numbers work.
$22,000 a month. So the only way to make it work is to bring in more money.
Yeah.
By shaving 2 hours off that busser's schedule,
Yeah.
I'm not going to become a profitable concept. It's not going to happen. And so, all we focused on was revenue generation. All we focused on was broad scale awareness. All we focused on, and to be honest, we focused on one medium, right? The internet. That was it. And why? Because that's how people find restaurants. That's it. Sure, it's through word of mouth, but you'd be crazy to think that if someone raves about your restaurant, that person isn't going to go to your website first, that they're not going to check out your menu before they show up. It is such a rare occasion when people walk into a restaurant blind in 2019. So what do your materials look like? How's the copywriting on your page? What do your photos look like? Are you transporting people to another world? If you can't give people a holy shit experience at a glance when they're looking at what you do for a living,
absolutely,
you're screwed. That's because that's not half the battle. That's the whole battle.
You got to bring the experience to life for the customer before they walk in the door.
You do, right?
Yeah.
It's not about convincing people to go out to a restaurant. It's about convincing people to go out to your restaurant.
No doubt about it. Let's go back in time. So Baton Rouge, Louisiana, you go to LA looking for a hot concept to bring back. What happened first?
It's just the strangest thing in the world. So I'm Xeroxing bartending resumes at Kinko's. And this guy walks in with one of those like gym boxes. It's like, enter your name to win a year-long free membership. And I was like, hey, bro, are you guys hiring? And he goes, for what? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, are you Southern? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, my whole family's from Mississippi. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. He goes, well, just come into the gym tomorrow and I'll get you a job. And he introduced me to the fitness director who hired me on as a personal trainer. They trained me to be a personal trainer. And it was through that I met this guy named Ronnie, who hit me up and he was like, you used to bartend, right? This was like a year later. And he was like, you used to bartend, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I'm working the door at this nightclub in Hollywood. And they need a patio bartender, which, I mean, if there's a lower ranking position in front of house, I'd like to know what it is. Because you're not a busser. You don't even have a busser. You're like on this island onto yourself. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'll totally do it. He was like, I'll pay $100 a night. I was like, yes, I'm in. So I book it over to the nightclub. I set it all up. I run the service. I break it down. And they were like, hey, you did a pretty good job. Come back next Tuesday. 2 months later, I'm the general manager of an 8,000 square foot nightclub in Hollywood. That nightclub turned out to be the most popular, trendy nightclub in LA for well over a year. I captained that, captained a couple of other nightclubs. Got out of it entirely, was like, I'm never going to be in hospitality again because the nightclub industry is just scandalous and it'll just burn you out. So I got out of that, decided I was going to start a clothing line. I don't really know why, other than it seemed like it would be easy because I had access to all of these celebrities through the nightclub industry. That actually went incredibly well. I launched through Barney's New York and Kitson, ended up with 400 doors in the U.S., was distributed through 8 countries, really got an appreciation for the hospitality industry there because it was just a grind, whereas I've always enjoyed my time in the hospitality industry. At the lowest point in the market in 2008, I licensed the clothing line and I bought a bar on Hollywood Boulevard called 504. And that, that is what precipitated all of it.
This is crazy. And I'm going to throw this out there just because it's relevant. So I lived in Los Angeles from 1989 to 1993. I was in the clothing business and my partner and I started a line. We got into Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom's. We ran this thing for about 2.5 years, got knocked off numerous times. It was brutal, and we finally, packed that up after a couple of years, moved back east. But yeah, I know the scene you're talking about.
Oh my God, I thought
California Mart,
until I got into fashion and I went running back to hospitality.
Yeah. So you started this place on the Hollywood Boulevard, and how well did that go right off the bat?
It cranked. It cranked from the day it opened. From the day it opened, it made money. which, I mean, what a wonderful place to be.
What was the draw? What was the ambiance? What was the theme? Like, what made it rock?
So 504 is the area code for New Orleans. So if you can imagine, a ton of wrought iron, spinning daiquiri machines. And, I think that, when everybody's going right, you go left. And so, I was able to stick my finger in the air and I could see the way the winds were changing. And, there was a recession. There were no bars on Hollywood Boulevard other than the Frolic Room at the time. And so I opened like a cheap divey bar. I opened the bar that I spent my youth in,
Was it in the sleazy side of Hollywood? Like you were on the Walk of Fame, but there's some sketchy parts of Hollywood.
Yeah, I would say when we opened almost 10 years ago, we were on the abandoned side of Hollywood. Yeah. There was no traffic. There was no tourist traffic like drawing that far down at the time, which was fine with me because I lived in Hollywood for a long time. And I knew that Hollywood, forgetting the glitz and the glamour, was a densely populated residential area. And I know that that's my bread and butter. I know that like if I had a core competency, it would be building community.
Cool.
So I was like, that's what I'll do. I opened it's a 900 square foot bar, got top line revenues up to $1.4 million a year. And we cranked, and it was great. And it was always busy and it was always the same people every day. When I first launched, and it was so fun and so funny for as long as it lasted. Everyone we hired was from Louisiana.
No way.
Oh,
Did you find these people? Did you put it on the paper looking for Louisiana?
I did. That's exactly. I was like, hey, are you from Louisiana? You want a job? Hit me up.
Cajun style. Oh my God.
It was an absolute blast because I was literally trying to recreate the environment that I grew up with. And I'm sure just like I'm doing a poor job explaining it now, I would have done a poor job explaining it then. So, the cheat was you just hire a bunch of people that grew up with you. Right? That already know what it's like. And you say, yo, I want this to be a mixture of this place and this place.
Right.
I want you to feel like this in here. And like they executed to perfection.
Sweet. What happened next?
Well, it was time for our sophomore effort. I mean, I don't know how many people you talk to that say, oh, I did everything right and everything was perfect. But, my professional life has been a comedy of errors. And it just so happened to work out incredibly well. While I owned the clothing line, I used to eat lunch across the street at this place called Angelenos. It's in this beautiful Flatiron building in the heart of downtown LA. And I always said if that building ever became available, I would pick it up. So it came available. We were about 4 or 5 years in at 504. So we snatched it up as soon as I heard that it was available. It was an aggressive negotiation, but we got it. And this was going to be the second location of 504. We spent 9 months building it out. We hired a publicist to open it. And I can remember I still have this press clipping. It's me on the front page of the LA Times food section, and it says 504 is coming to downtown LA. Shortly after that article released, I called my business partner on the phone, and I said, I'm looking at the aesthetics of this 2-story restaurant, and it is not a 504. People aren't going to understand this. Whatever the idea was initially, it has evolved into something else. He goes, so you want to change the name? I said, no, I want to change the concept entirely. Like, I think we need to go more upscale. This looks more upscale. It feels more upscale. I think that, this would be a better pairing with the market. And he was like, we open in a month. We're already getting press. Everybody knows. But, I don't know what the opportunity cost is on making the right decision, but I know what the cost is on making the wrong decision. So after getting all of this press for opening a second 504 in downtown LA, I decided to pivot into Preux Proper and create this fine dining / bar room concept that focused on modern Southern cuisine. And then we opened. And
I want to hear all about that, but let me ask you a question. Let's go back to 504 before we dive into Preux Proper, if you don't mind. So you were 10 minutes ago, you're working as a personal trainer in a fitness club. And all of a sudden you open a bar on Hollywood Boulevard, and yeah, it generated big numbers and alcohol is super profitable. But how'd you get your financing to start the thing?
You know, I believe that when you are in the right headspace, good things come your way. And maybe I can say that because of the way my life has worked out, but I've always kind of had this bump on a log mentality where, like, you know, I try and keep myself as open as possible to things. The way I acquired the location was I just licensed the clothing line. Spent about 6 weeks in bed because I was depressed because I didn't know what I was going to do. And a girlfriend of mine hit me up and she was like, hey, I want you to come see this new spot that she was dating the landlord, and the landlord had broken up with her, and as a gift had given her this leasehold at this great deal on Hollywood Boulevard. And she calls me in, and it turned out she wanted financing. She wanted me to invest in her concept. And I said, what are you going to do? And she goes, burgers and beer. And I was like, there are like 5 places down the road doing burgers and beer.
Sure.
So I'm not interested, but I love the space. It was, you know, in Southern California, patios are king, and this whole bar is patio. So I was just floored by the opportunity. I call her a month later. I'm like, did you get financing? And she goes, no. And I said, well, then I'll take it off your hands. Whatever your investors put in, whatever you put in, whatever time you put in, I'll just clear it all out and I'll just absorb it from you because I don't like your concept. I won't invest in it. But I do have a concept that I think would do really well in here. So why don't I just take it from you? And she goes, okay.
Excellent.
We agreed to a price. And I was going to start fielding, you know, I was going to go back to like the investors from the nightclub era and all of that to get financing. And then a buddy of mine who's done very well hit me up and he goes, hey man, I heard you're thinking about opening a bar in Hollywood. I said, yeah. And he goes, why don't you come by my office and we'll talk about it. And I went by his office and I told him what the concept was. And he goes, yeah, it's great. We should do it. And I was like, okay. I was like, how much do you want to invest? He goes, oh, I'll just do the whole thing. And I was like, oh,
awesome.
Okay. And that was that.
Captured lightning in a bottle.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, Carlos Santana says that there's nothing in the world more contagious than enthusiasm. I'm a very enthusiastic person, and I believe that that is the fuel that kind of moves this machine forward.
For sure. All right, let's talk Preux Proper.
All right, so modern Southern cuisine. So, you know, we came in. Let's start at year 2.
Okay.
Right, because I don't think anyone needs to hear about how terrible the first 2 years were. But, you know, it was literally the first restaurant I had ever worked in my life. I come out of bars. I come out of nightlife. I come out of ultra lounges and nightclubs. And so, you know, when we pivoted to fine dining or, you know, an elevated concept, I mean, I didn't know what to do to promote it. I didn't know how to position us in the market. You know, fortunately, the executive chef we brought in knew a lot. But again, like I decided that if we were going to go out of business, what I was going to do was I was going to do everything that I wanted to do, everything in my power to make sure that it is exactly how I envisioned, you know? And that's what I did. I took out an Amex loan for about $100,000 and I spent it. I bought a ton of tables and chairs. I changed like the color of things I didn't like. I bought all of the tools that I thought the staff needed to succeed. I invested in training and retraining. We invested in new plateware and always having enough silverware, you know, in the basics. And I hired a publicist. And that was kind of the beginning of the rebirth. And then, you know, we got to work on our public face. You know, if I was to give anyone advice, I would say, you know, labor is the devil. You're not making enough money because you're not making enough money. And you need to focus on your brand image. And I'm not like a marketing guy, but I can tell you that the way I look for a restaurant is the way everyone looks for a restaurant. You go online, you look for something that tickles your fancy, and you move on from there. So you've got to look for the elements that are going to separate you from the pack. And that's exactly what we did. I'll give you just a few simple examples. And I think every restaurateur should do this. On Yelp, you have the opportunity to pay for a slideshow. It's like $20 a month. And granted, everyone thinks Yelp is the devil, but everyone still uses it. I still use it, right? And so for $20 a month, I can control the imagery that people see when they go to that page. And either it can be inspiring or it could be something that an octogenarian took in low light on their 20-year-old cell phone from a terrible angle, right? And my preference is that it's my photos, that it's food, beverage, and experience. And again, like that is a tool that you use to control how people perceive your location. We spend a lot of time working and reworking our copy. Modern Southern cuisine doesn't exist. We created the terminology because it evokes, right? Now you're thinking about these age-old recipes that are made with scratch ingredients that are presented in a gorgeous way. It's about positioning. It's about really trying to figure out who your target audience is and then catering to them in a way that'll really resonate.
It's funny, you're not a marketing guy, but I used to work in an ad agency on Wilshire Boulevard, and you speak just like all the ad dudes, man. I think you become a marketing guy.
You become a song and dance man, right?
Yeah.
I can remember I was on Beale Street in Memphis, and there was this guy standing outside at this host stand. And he goes, "Hey guys," and he owned the restaurant because I asked, because I had to know. He goes, "Hey guys, you should come in and have lunch with me." I mean, ribs are a bit heavy for lunch, right? And he goes, "They're the best ribs you'll ever have in your life. Come in, and if you don't like them, I'll give you your money back." I mean, those have to be really good ribs, right? So we went in, and they were, and we paid, and we left. But like that restaurant owner is a song and dance man. Just like I am, just like you are. Like, if you're going to make money, it's because there are people in your restaurant. If there are people in your restaurant, it's because you've convinced them to go in. These things, it takes so long for a restaurant to tip. It takes years for a restaurant to tip. So it's about that constant hustle. It's about hopefully encouraging people to come in, but focusing exclusively on like new customer acquisition. That's the bread and butter. Magic Especially stuff. Like if you're at our price point.
Yeah. That is awesome. So what about the competition in the area of Preux Proper? What would you say within a couple 100 yards of your place you're competing with? What concepts, and are they well known? Are they brands? Are they, driven?
The best restaurants in the city at this point, I would say, are located in downtown Los Angeles.
What part of downtown would you say? Like, describe the neighborhood.
Arts district, fashion district.
Sure. Okay, I'm familiar with that area.
Two of the biggest. Central bit is pretty popular as well. But you're looking at like David Chang just opened Major Domo. You've got Bavel. You've got Bestia, which is literally one of the busiest restaurants in the country. It's an Italian restaurant. You've got Redbird, owned by Chef Neil Frazier. There are so many. Rasa Blue, which just got a nod as well. Faith and Flower. Broken Spanish is another one. I mean, huge. It's behemoth.
That's fantastic. It's funny. I interviewed Rasa Blue a couple months ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So I'm familiar with that area now. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. So fun. So tell us, you must have a training philosophy as well. Let's talk about staff training. What do you focus on? What do you teach them? What's the end result in your restaurants? Do you believe in pre-shift meetings? Take me through all that.
You got it. So I run my restaurants based off my core values. That is exclusively the metric. That is the only metric we use to evaluate the staff. I meet with every member of my staff across 3 locations quarterly. I used to do it monthly. And in those meetings, we sit down and we discuss my core values and their performance relative to those core values on a pass-fail basis. And so That is how we manage. Again, for me, it's all about the why. Like if people understand why you do what you do for a living, they're more likely to show up on time, right? They're more likely to show up in uniform. I also have a zero tolerance policy for, I don't know how to describe it other than just non-compliance or personal failures. Like if you can't show up on time, if you can't show up in uniform, if you can't handle baseline compliance, it's just not going to work out. Our retention rate is probably, not that I've run the numbers, probably 40% in the first 2 weeks and 99% thereafter.
How would you describe your management style? What is it like to work for you?
Oh, I would hope it's inspiring.
I get that. I get the inspiring
it's, and if it ended there, I would be happy with that. I use my position as an opportunity to educate. It's never about how smart I am or how well we're doing. I use pre-shift as an opportunity to do a variety of things. One, let them know what we're working on to make things better. Two, field any questions. Three, we all go around in a circle and say one thing we're grateful for, because as a person, as an operator, and as a business, we have a central focus on gratitude. And I also tell them about the mistakes I made that week, which I think is important. I make mistakes all the time. But, they have the good fortune of getting to learn using my money. Most people pay for an education. What I am attempting to do is pay them to get an education. So that when they go out there into the world, because, and this is somewhat true when you're talking about younger employees, but it is absolutely true across the board, regardless of age in Los Angeles. Like people that work for me, it's a pass-through position, right? Nobody's trying to work their way the industry. Everybody is one rock solid audition away from telling me to go screw myself, And so understanding that literally everyone that works for me front of house has aspirations outside of this industry. We make a deal. We make a deal the day you're hired. And the deal is this. I'm going to work every day to help make your dreams come true. And every day you're going to work to help me make my dreams come true. And it works. It really does. And I do help. I help in every way imaginable. The great thing about being a restaurateur in Los Angeles, in a very popular restaurant, is there are people of influence that are in all the time. And they love me because I don't need shit from them, right? I'm the only one not asking. I'm the only one offering. And so, I've been able to build these solid relationships over the years. And if I can use those to help someone get the right representation or the right audition or to get a foot in the door, then I do.
Sweet. What about recognition and rewards? I mean, how do you elevate your people? You mentioned your retention rate goes up after 4 months and it's really, really high. That's awesome. How do you keep them?
I think that has to do with the interpersonal relationship that's built. People, I believe truly that people only think they're motivated by money. And the reason I believe that is because I've been in positions in my life and I've seen other people that I'm close to in positions in their life where they were making a shit ton of money and they were miserable, right? So you think you're motivated by money, but you're not. What you're motivated by is satisfaction at a job well done and fulfillment. And, I think we have the market cornered on that. I think that if you have an open door policy and that, you're interacting with your people every day, I think that's the reason people don't leave, is because when I ask you how you're doing, like it's not in passing. It's a real check-in. Hey, how are you doing? Is there anything that you need? What can I do to make your job easier? What can I do to make your life easier? And in return, they do the same for me.
Thank you. It's a two-way street.
It is, absolutely. Hey, it's a little slow right now. Is there anything you need me to do?
Awesome. That's leading by example right there.
For sure. It's being a human, right? I've read so many management books, but what I have found is that, my key to success has been, one, in the realization that I am incredibly average. What I like is what everybody likes. I don't have exceptional taste. I don't have exceptional preferences. I am every man. So if I market to myself or I treat people the way I would want to be treated, typically it works out really well. But, I think especially the highest levels, it's got to come down to mindfulness. It's understanding that most of the frustrations that you're dealing with as a manager come from your inability to manage well.
There's so many restaurants out there like that, unfortunately. Thanks for that piece of advice. I think it's well heard, and I'm totally inspired by just that one nugget alone.
Right on.
What about mistakes? Failures?
My restaurant was undercapitalized. That was the biggest mistake I ever made.
And that is one of the biggest causes of failure in the restaurant business.
Man, I see it all the time. I work with 24 restaurants in the Los Angeles area, and every single one is undercapitalized. And the reason these restaurants are undercapitalized is because they have a poor strategy, right? Everybody's focused on Taco Tuesdays and Wine Wednesdays, and and I joke with my people all the time, and I was like, do you want to know how you can make an extra $5,000 on a Tuesday night? And everyone's like, how? And I'm like, give away free sexual favors. It'll pack the house. They'll love it. They'll pay full price for the food. But outside of that, the only way to get packed on a Tuesday night is by making every other night of the week so busy, it is their only option. It's very difficult to make an extra $5,000 on a Tuesday. It is very easy to make an extra $5,000 on a Friday or Saturday. Your restaurant is undercapitalized on volume nights. Right? How many covers are you doing on a Friday? Are you doing 100? Could you do 150? Could you do 200? Could you do 250? Could you have people on a 40-minute wait from the minute you open? Could you make that work? And those are that's the big idea, right? That if you want to make an extra $5,000 a week on Tuesdays, more power to you. If you figure it out, call me. I'll make sure that it's somewhere on this podcast. My email address is there. But I think it's a lot easier to bring in an extra $15,000 on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, $5,000 at a time. And there's a way to do it. How many people listening now are getting 3 turns on a Friday and Saturday night?
Hopefully everybody.
I mean, God willing, but it's harder than it looks.
Well, it is hard. But I mean, it's all about, all those details. I call this the business of 1,000 details.
Absolutely. And when I talk to people and they say, how are you going to get this place busier? I tell everyone, it's by doing everything. You do everything at once. You do 1,000 things. And the aggregate of those 1,000 things will be that you get busier. Everything you do will create an incremental improvement, whether it's the Yelp slideshow, or it's, I'll give you another great example. On Open Table and on Yelp, I was classified as Cajun Creole because that was kind of the baseline cuisine that we focused on. And granted, it expanded outside of that, but that's where we started. And then once I realized that captive audience had we had saturated that market, which was probably 30 people, that maybe we needed to expand outside of that. So then I changed my classification from Cajun Creole to Southern, right? Now I'm at like 300 people. Very exciting. And now what does it say? It says New American. It's not a lie. That's exactly what we are. And that's what people are looking for. I'm in a difficult place because, how many people wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want Cajun and Creole for dinner? They don't. They want Indian. They want Chinese. They want Italian. So you've got to be broad enough that people that may not know they're interested in trying your food have the opportunity to be exposed to your brand. And again, I'll go back to it because I think it matters. What does the quality of your photography look like online? What does that messaging look like? Are you inspiring people? I've got this this restaurant that I consulted on, and I'll just bring it up because I think it highlights that even when you know everything, sometimes you miss really big things. Michelin-rated chef. It's like a 2-star Michelin-rated chef. He's got this amazing wine bar in LA, and his bio on Open Table for his restaurant is his personal bio. And I was like, who's going to eat that? Like, like on what planet, like, would that inspire someone to come in? Yes, you're a good chef. What are you cooking? What is it like? What is the food like? What is the beverage program like? What does it feel like to dine there? Yes, you are an incredibly talented chef, but like, why in the world would like the description for the restaurant be the description for your life?
Yeah, you got to bring the whole concept to life for the customer,
do,
like
but
we
it's
talked about earlier. You got to be able to step right into that website and imagine yourself in that restaurant, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste, the flavor profiles, the compliments of the cocktails and the wine. You got to get the whole feeling from the website. And that is so powerful. If you can accomplish that, and again, professional photography and video and all those things are so important, especially with the food,
Right. And then what's the next step? The next step is being able to capture that business. It's about optimizing your online reservation platform. It's about making it so that, strategically, you open the book so that people can book for the most part whenever they want, however you want. That's the caveat there, right? A little trick that we use is I don't allow anyone to book in my restaurant between 7 and 8 p.m. It's blacked out. It pushes everyone. Everyone goes, this is how you get shoulder business. Well, I'll tell you how to get shoulder business. You make it the only option. And if your restaurant's good enough and there's enough demand, people will just go. Because everyone on the planet wants to eat dinner at 7:30. And while I can appreciate that, it's going to obliterate your service.
Okay, let's touch on that concept a little deeper. So, reservation policy. People in a city like Los Angeles expect to make reservations. But what would happen if you didn't allow reservations and it was first come, first serve? And if you're doing your job right, and if the buzz is there, you're creating sort of a demand that they can't have, that they're expecting to get. What do you think about that? What would happen if you took away the reservation policy?
I think that only works. I think that only works based on a certain square footage.
Okay.
I've got a 6,000 square foot 2-story restaurant. I'm looking for guarantees. And that's it. So, forgetting what works for the patrons, what works for me is knowing roughly how many people are going to come in. That works for me. I like the guarantee of that business.
How often are people 10, 15 minutes late for that reservation? You're holding tables that aren't productive.
So we don't do that. What we do is we strategically overbook the restaurant and pray that people are 15 minutes late.
Okay, beautiful.
That's it. Here's the deal. And I had, again, and I said this earlier, and it's absolutely the case. We're serving world-class food. I can guarantee you that anyone that comes to my restaurant is going to have one of the best meals of their life. It's not bragging because I don't cook. I haven't boiled an egg in that kitchen. But in knowing how good the food is, it enables me to play fast and loose with the reservations. So let's say you have a reservation at 8 and you show up at 8 and I let you know, I am so sorry, but we are running about 30 minutes behind. Let me get you seated at the bar. I'll get you guys 2 glasses of sparkling wine. Are you hungry? Oh, you are? Here, I'll have an appetizer delivered to the bar. Make yourself at home. Right? The 2 glasses plus the app probably cost me $3. My per customer average is $65 a person, and I've retained them. The goal is always the same. The goal is to get everyone in the restaurant. Once you're in, you're not leaving. No matter how mad you get, I can fix it. Right? And so I just have to get you in. And once I get you in, I can keep you entertained. I can keep you fed and watered till it's time for you to seat. So for me, I use it as a tool. We have ghost tables, and if you try and make a reservation at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m., my books are wide open. I can take 999 people every 15 minutes if demand warrants it. And it's because that's what I want to fill. And then, again, the strategy, blacking out between 7 and 8, that gives me an hour to turn the entire room to get my second turn. And then if my team is doing their job, which they typically do, I'll get all of those people out in about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And then I'm going to get that third turn right around 9 or 9:30. And those are my walk-ins.
All right. Do you have any issues with what we call camping? You get people that just don't leave the table.
Yes. So that falls into one of my other philosophies, which is radical honesty. I am the guy that walks up to the table and says, "Hey guys, I know you're done with the meal and you guys can stay here for as long as you want. But if you move to the bar, I'll buy you a round of drinks. I need to move this table. Do you see those people sitting over there or standing over there? They're waiting for the table. So if you could hook me up with this, I'll totally help you out." And they do. Because people are people and people want to help. But, I've never understood this. One of my most memorable restaurant experiences was my wife and I were at this restaurant and the food was dragging. And I watched the waitress walk all the way around the restaurant to avoid eye contact with us. Instead of walking up and being like, "Hey, the food's dragging. It's probably going to be another 30 minutes. I'm sure you're starving. I'm going to bring out a dish to tide you over. We can bring out the burrata because there's zero preparation. We'll bring out the shishito peppers, just because I don't want you to be hungry. And I know you've been waiting for 20 minutes and the jig's up." If you assume people aren't stupid, if you assume that people want to be made aware, and give people the opportunity, I don't tell you it's going to be 20 minutes until you're going to be seated if it's going to be 40. I tell you it's going to be 40. If I need you to get up, I'll bribe you to get up because that's a transactional situation, right?
Totally.
You want to sit longer. I want you to get up, and I'm willing to throw money at that situation to make that happen.
Well, hopefully they stay after that. You buy them that round of drinks, they have another one.
It will, absolutely. And you know what? If they don't, they still got up. Yep. I still got what I wanted out of it.
Exactly. You're an impresario.
I am just treading water here, my friend. Just treading water.
Let's ask, what's your best advice to independent operators out there, no matter where they're running their restaurants?
Focus on the top line. Work with strategic partners. We work with companies like Dinova and Rewards Network to bring in traffic. I would also say that if your strategy is to make all of your money one way, which would be by having people come in and dining at your restaurant, it's going to be a long, hard life. There are multiple ways to bring in revenue, and I think that the people that are making the most money are doing everything. They're focused on catering and bringing in filming work. They're selling gift cards on their website and focusing on third-party delivery. They have retail packages available of their hot sauces and butters, and they have a central focus on events, which are basically free money. Totally. That's it. And if you wanted to, I could dig into events because, oh my God, there's so much. That is where everybody is losing the most money. We bring in, the first year I started focusing on events, we brought in $100,000. And 3 years later, we're going to do almost $1 million in events this year.
Private parties,
private room, large parties. But it's, you know what the trick was? And you can go to our website, preuxandproper.com. You can check out our reserve to events tab, and that's how you book. You know what we do? We leave nothing up to the imagination. You can take a virtual tour. You look at my packages. They have photos of what the rooms look like. We have different carts and options. Again, it's about being a human. You've got to realize when somebody's booking an event at your place that it is a high stress situation. Either it is a professional thing where they're hoping they don't get embarrassed or fired, or it is a familial thing, which is twice as stressful because your mother-in-law is involved. And so if you can set it up so that they can envision through the materials you've given them a world-class experience, you're good to go. That's it.
Are you trying to serve these private parties during fringe times, or otherwise it's going to slow down your regular dining service? Take me there. Really
depends on your budget.
Okay.
It really does. Would I close service for a lucrative event? Of course I would. Mm-hmm. It's it really depends on what your budget is. I still handle the events for Preux Proper because it's my restaurant, and I feel like I have the carte blanche to make whatever work depending on, our current reservation load and, other monies that we need to bring in. But I think that's very situational. Obviously, I would love to bring them all in on Monday afternoon.
Oh yeah,
But as an example, if you would like to buy out Saturday night at Preux Proper, I'll shut it down for $30,000. And the world is your oyster. You can have whatever you want. But we work with people to ebb anxiety. I don't know if that's a big motivator in your life, but it's certainly a big motivator in mine. And so, we tell everyone, we're Southern, we're laid back, we're easy. My mama says that the 6 most beautiful words that could ever come out of a Southern man's mouth are, "Don't worry, baby, I'll handle it." And so, that's the philosophy we take, whether it is with, a two-top that comes in on a Thursday night, whether it's a 250-person party. We like to handle it all, and we do that through materials to start.
Sweet. Is there anything we missed, Joshua? Anything else you want to share with the audience? It's been an amazing conversation.
This has been an absolute blast. The last thing I would say is this. Answer your phones. We saw a 10% increase in top line sales by answering our phones, right? Everyone's answering their phones at 4:00. Who's answering their phones at 9:00 in the morning? I'll tell you who's calling. It's secretaries looking to book out like big dollar luncheons with no budgets for their boss. And they're calling your restaurant because they need resolution now. And if you don't answer, they don't leave a message. They just call the next restaurant. Because they're not trying to book at your restaurant. They're trying to book at a restaurant, and they called you first. I was amazed at how much money was left on the table by not answering the phones. I was shocked.
That's an eye-opener.
It is. So get all the calls forwarded to your cell phone at your restaurant. You can make it work and field it, and you are guaranteed to make more money. To prove the point, we started a virtual reservationist, the first of its kind, where I hired the best reservationist in Los Angeles, and through a technology software we built out, we're able to answer the phones from one reservation is able to answer the phone for multiple restaurants. We offer it for 2 weeks for free, and we guarantee a 5 to 10% increase in top line sales. Do you want to know how? We answer the phone. It's that simple. And you don't have to use us. You can just answer your own phones, but you will be amazed at the money that you're leaving on the table.
Awesome. You heard it, folks. Those are the words from Joshua Kopel. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. That was such a blast.
It was a blast. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciated it.
That was the Restaurant RockStars Podcast, folks, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. As you can tell, I really enjoy talking shop with operators, those that have had challenges and pain points in their business, as well as those who have found great successes and everything in between. As you can see from this action-packed episode, Josh Kopel has seen it all. This is definitely one of the most challenging businesses out there, and I've been in a lot of businesses, but I don't need to tell anyone how difficult it is to run restaurants or the high failure rate. If you could benefit from one-on-one coaching, I love working personally with restaurant operators, owners, and general managers. I specialize in 3 what I call the fundamentals of the business: the critical finances, the inventory, the prime costs, food, beverage, and labor costs, of course, net profit, daily break-even, all those critical financial tools that so many restaurant operators are missing, and I make it simple. I teach you everything you need to know. I also specialize in staff training because I'm a huge believer that training your staff is the most important competitive advantage in your business, okay? A lot of restaurants train on service or the hospitality piece, but they're missing the salesmanship piece, and they both go together because sales are the lifeblood of your business. My proven programs have doubled check averages in restaurants, so check that out. What about marketing? You know, lots of restaurants spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on traditional advertising, radio, print, and TV. And I've found that those things just can't deliver a guaranteed return on investment. You'll never know if your money spent is actually bringing in the customers. But instead, I focus on proven marketing techniques that are guaranteed to drive new and repeat business for very little money, as well as efficiencies across your operation. I have a limited number of personal coaching slots available each year, so I'm taking reservations now. So if this sounds like something that could help your business move forward, please reach out to me. Roger is ROGER at restaurantrockstars.com. I hope to hear from you. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review on iTunes. We have over 180 episodes now, all archived on our website at restaurantrockstars.com. Whether it's finance or service or marketing or technology, you'll find it all there. But please recommend us and let your friends who also operate or run restaurants know. But they can find us on iTunes, of course. We appreciate reviews. We appreciate your listening. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.